it does seem that this tactic, it seems like it's more desperate to me. Do you get that feeling, this like fourth attempt you say, and it's just a handful? To those of you who don't know at the moment, just before we went on air, we heard that Guaido was in the middle of Caracas, was it, with a handful of generals, etc., and so a small force. I got word it was between 200 and 500. I don't know how true is that.
1,000 earlier, but it's still quite insignificant.
Yeah, it's a small force, and they're all wearing, I heard, blue armbands to distinguish, I suppose, which are pro-Guaido forces and which are pro-Maduro, or, as I said on Twitter, which are bought from by the CIA and which aren't. It does seem more desperate, though, this tactic does, and it looked like this is something more that he's doing this to elicit a response that then that can be used to escalate it, rather than actually this have any credible chance of him overthrowing the government, doesn't it, John?
Yeah, because if you look at the direction it's been going for many weeks now, it's hard to put a date of when it started, but let's say the 23rd of January when Trump recognised Guaido. For the weeks since, his support has seemed to just deflate and deflate and deflate. When I was there, they would organise protests and people wouldn't bother to turn up, or they'd just be going home by lunchtime. If you look at the videos from the last couple of weeks, he's called these supposedly huge protests in Caracas, and you can fit everybody in the frame from maybe like 50 meters away. They're really not popular protests at the moment. So the coup's going downhill. There's no real suggestion that the military would be more likely to join him at this stage rather than another. So it's difficult to say what his tactic is at the moment, but it seems likely that perhaps he's trying to provoke a reaction from the Venezuelan military and create some kind of symbolic justification to a kind of symbolic event for the West to say, oh, look what's happening in Venezuela.
Yeah, a similar the reason I ask is a similar thing. I'm trying to remember back in, I think it was 2013, there was another coup attempt, wasn't there? I think it was 2013. There have been so many. You lose track of which one's what. But I seem to remember there was some excellent reporting at the time by Abby Martin from the Empire Files, and they used a flare up, and the media twisted a flare up from a shooting on a bridge. Do you remember this? Can you shed any light on it?
This, I believe, was the 2002 coup attempt. Or maybe
2002.
Yeah. There were people protesting, and there was a sniper on a roof, and some people got shot, and the narrative was instantly created that these were actors on behalf of Hugo Chavez, and that was used to create a narrative that this has been done on behalf of the government, that the government's now promoting the killing of civilians, but it actually turned out that these were just rogue actors. Was that the one that led to Chavez being held at gunpoint? I seem to remember that happening around that time, didn't it? Yeah. There's been various kind of smaller and larger attempts, but in 2002, there was basically a coup attempt that it was revealed quite soon after that had been backed and funded by the CIA. To get rid of Chavez. The military withdrew him from the office. They held him for 3 days, and then the people eventually. But this was not just a coup by the military. This was a coup by the media as well.
Yeah.
Because there was absolutely no coverage of what was actually going on at this point. Nobody had actually explained that Chavez had been removed in a military coup. They'd actually said that he'd resigned. However, people took to the streets and basically reinstated Chavez. Within 72 hours. Yeah,
I know there was another one, I think, in 2000. I can't remember whether there was 3 or 4 coup attempts now, but obviously this is the latest. Now, what's the reason behind this? I'm of the view that there are many reasons, chief of which there are 297 billion of them underneath Venezuelan soil in the form of barrels of oil. That's what this is all about, isn't it? Really, John. Well, is that what you can see? For obviously, you haven't been over there and on the ground there.
Yeah, well, it's. I mean, it's obviously a large part, and the frustrating thing about this coup is that the Trump administration is so frank about their imperialist intentions.
Yeah, and it's also who he's putting into key positions as well, isn't it? It's not just his rhetoric; it's the whole Elliot Abrams and Mike Pompeo and Gina Haspel. The whole, you talk of a troika of tyranny. Just look at those three.
Yeah, so people are calling it the quiet part out loud administration, where they're saying the parts that past administrations would keep quiet. So you've got John Bolton saying that it'd be great for US corporations if we could get our hands on Venezuela's oil assets. And so you've got them just openly saying that a major part of this coup attempt is to do with oil. And the media is just ignoring it. I mean, back in 2017, you had a FBI director quoting Trump as saying, Venezuela has the largest oil reserves in the world. Yeah. Why aren't we at war with them?
And they're on our back door. He said that, didn't he? He said, they're on our back door. Why aren't we there?
Yeah. So, I mean, you've got this kind of overwhelming evidence. I mean, the administration is telling us that this is, to a large degree, about oil. And the media is just like no.
Yeah, this is. I want to ask you about this so much because you obviously cover the news over here. You obviously write for the Canary. I view the Canary as sort of like the last bastion of hope in the media in our country. It really is. It's the model of what I think the Canary is the model of what I think journalism should be going forward, whether that be left wing, right wing, or whatever. They're objective, and I really like that about them. But apart from their reporting on this, the rest of them, especially the what you would class the corporate media and the BBC especially, their silence with regards to the Trump administration, such as blaseness about this. I mean, I looked at the BBC's reporting on this, John. Honestly, I couldn't find any instance on anything that they've written with regards to the Venezuela crisis since the beginning of the year. I can't see them even mentioning Elliot Abrams' name. How can you not do that? Surely that's a dereliction of duty not to inform the public, oh, by the way, this guy was found guilty of lying about shipping arms into South American countries to create a coup, and then was pardoned for it by George Bush, and now he's doing the same thing again. How can the BBC not say that to their audience and still think that they're doing their job?
Well, on that specific point, it actually gets worse because the BBC published an article called Venezuela's bridge crisis, Trojan horse or humanitarian aid. And in that article, they actually managed to omit any mention that the person in charge of Venezuela, the Venezuelan Special Envoy, Elliot Abrams, had used humanitarian aid as a Trojan horse, like word, to ship arms to the Contras in Nicaragua in the 1980s. So I mean, they actually had an article entitled, we're going to answer this question, and somehow that information slipped through the writer and the editors.
Yeah, you say somehow there with a smile on your face, because honestly, I mean, the jury's like the jury's not out anymore. The jury's come back. They've said, our BBC and our corporate media is not fit for purpose, and they've buggered off 5 years ago. It's really that blatant, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean the BBC in particular as well is kind of an important case because it's just been historically on the side of kind of ruinous British foreign policy. If you take, there's some parallels that we can take. If you look at 1953, the UK-US backed coup in Iran that was just openly about oil. I mean, the Iranian government had just nationalised its oil interests, which were owned by what became BP. So
Yeah, it was the
highly-
Anglo-Iranian oil company, wasn't
Yeah,
it? And
exactly.
it became BP.
Exactly. So the BBC actually announced that coup to people in Iran by slightly modifying one of their programs to kind of act as a siren. Right, this is happening now. I mean, if you look at its coverage of Iraq as well, a Cardiff University study found that it was the most pro-Iraq war broadcaster, and I mean that ahead of broadcasters like Sky News. So I mean, it has major form on acting as a mouthpiece of the British Defence Ministry.
Well, do you think do you think, I mean, I'm of the view with the BBC especially, and I don't want to get too much into the BBC on this because obviously we want to talk about Venezuela, but I'm of the view that they do great work so they're charged with three things on their mandate, aren't they? It's to inform, to entertain, and to educate. That's the three things that they're. And so, with regards to the education and the entertaining, I mean, I think they're probably the best in the world. I mean, they're entertaining, for instance, their sports events. I think their coverage is just second to none. You try watching Olympic Games coverage on ESPN and compare that to BBC. There's no difference.
And stuff like
it's night and day rather. But with regards to obviously informing, they're not doing their job, are they? So I mean, and they're stealing. Obviously, I call it stealing £150.50 off every household in the country, and that's about to go up, and it's about to, I think, if the House of Lords get their way, it's about to include pensioners as well. Well, they want to take away the free TV licence from pensioners, the House of Lords. Do you think it's savable? Is the point I'm trying to make? With 70, 100 years or whatever it is of this propaganda sort of ingrained into them, and obviously there's such an intertwining now of government and state broadcaster, especially since David Cameron made his changes a few years ago with regard to who was on the board there. Do you think it's savable at all? It's the $64,000 question, I know, but I'm just interested.
I mean, looking at the history of his coverage, I don't have much hope for him improving.
Honestly, John, I ask everybody that question, and everybody's reaction is exactly the same as yours. It's all like, "Come on!" It's like, I don't, what. I think everybody is of the view that it's unsavable now.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote quite a large article on its coverage of Venezuela, and one of the journalists it sent to cover Venezuela was a woman called Orla Guerin, and she had an interview with the president, with Maduro, and she introduced him firstly insultingly as the other president. In the presidential palace in Miraflores. She, in the tweet when she shared it, she said, I spoke to Nicolas Maduro, who is currently occupying the presidential palace. I mean, there isn't even an attempt to disguise the position that the BBC holds on this. And I also showed in the article that it's supporting it through various a host of articles that it's supporting all three propaganda points that are justifying military intervention or at least regime change. I mean, even the words regime change are problematic because it assumes that there is a regime in the first place that needs changing, where many would argue in the case of Venezuela that it's just a democratically elected government with major problems, just like you see across Western Europe. So yeah, I mean, it was promoting the narrative that it's a dictatorship. It claimed on various times, or at least it quoted people without challenging them, that it was a rigged election in 2018, when every international observer that went to the country said the absolute opposite. The second narrative it was promoting was that there is a humanitarian crisis. In one video, they described the scenes as apocalyptic. I mean, they're creating these really strong emotional responses to what's going on in Venezuela, which any passive observer is just going to look at and say, Jesus Christ, what the fuck's going on there? Something needs to be done, And then when you have this something needs to be done it always presupposes that the something is going to be something better. And when the something is US interference, which it always is when it comes to intervention in a country in this kind of context, then the something is not always better. It's actually consistently or comprehensively worse. And thirdly, the BBC, this the third propaganda point that and the final propaganda point that it was pushing was that it threatened the national security. That Venezuela is currently threatening the national security of Western states, or at least the US, which is just absurd. I mean, you've got Colombia and Brazil, two US allies. I mean, Brazil's got a fascist president at the moment, and Colombia's got about 7 US bases in the country. Somehow they managed to elude that Venezuela might be a national security threat to the US, which is it's just gobsmacking the amount of nonsense that are supposedly impartial or objective news site.
Yeah, you brought up Bolsonaro there. I know it's no coincidence that for the last few days, Bolsonaro's son has been on the border with Venezuela, doing pieces to camera with various people who are presumably Venezuelan refugees about the crisis, and you can see how it's all been building up. And it's no coincidence that he's on the border up there, just at the same time as this is happening with Guaido. It does seem orchestrated and coordinated, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, what's kind of interesting about what happened on the 23rd of February, though, when they tried to force the humanitarian aid trucks over the border, was that the Brazilian military was kind of like, we don't really want to start a conflict on this border. I mean, it's going to end in absolute chaos. Completely unpredictable forms of chaos that, I mean, if you look at Libya, for example, the chaos that the intervention unleashed there is just something that no border country would want to participate in. So the Brazilian military actually took a step back and thought, Jesus Christ, this might actually be a terrible idea for everybody.
If you like this video and you want to see more, please subscribe and click the bell below so you get a notification of when I drop further videos. If you click the links on the screen and below this video through to my website as well, you can find out ways to support me. I can't do this without your help, and I really do appreciate it. Thanks very much for your support, and until next time, peace and take care.